The iPhone 16 Pro versus the iPhone 15 Pro Max, which one should you get? The iPhone 16 Pro is a little bit smaller than the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and honestly, that's going to be the biggest difference between these two phones. The 16 Pro has a 6.3-inch display, where the 15 Pro Max has a 6.7-inch display. So there's a little bit of a difference, but I think it does make a pretty big difference sometimes, especially when you're watching video. Like, I like to take my phone to the gym to watch stuff, so I don't have to take an iPad when I'm on the treadmill. And honestly, it's nicer having a bigger screen like the iPhone 15 Pro Max, but that comes at a price because the size and the weight of the 15 Pro Max is noticeably heavier, noticeably bigger than, of course, the 16 Pro, which is pretty small in comparison. And you definitely notice that difference, like when you throw these phones in your pocket. For example, when I go hiking or something, or I'm at the gym, the 15 Pro Max is like pulling my gym shorts down. It's heavy, it's bulky. I don't like it like slapping on my leg when I'm hiking. It's kind of annoying, and that's the main reason I ended up getting the 16 Pro this year instead of the Max version, is because I wanted to experience a smaller phone again. It still feels kind of big though. It doesn't feel like tiny, like a 13 mini or something, but it definitely feels smaller and noticeably lighter than the 15 Pro Max. So if you watch a lot of content on your phone, I would definitely recommend getting the bigger phone, which would be the 15 Pro Max. But if you like something a little more pocketable, a little more portable, definitely get the 16 Pro. The displays both have ProMotion. They both have basically the exact same display. They get the same amount of brightness. HDR content looks incredible on both of these. So they're basically the same display, except a bigger one on the 15 Pro Max. If we look at the rear of these phones, they look almost identical. The camera bumps don't even look too different. Actually, they look exactly the same to me. The only physical difference I'm noticing on these phones is, of course, the iPhone 16 Pro has the new camera button on the side. The iPhone 15 Pro Max does not have a camera button, but honestly, in my use of the camera button in the first like 2 weeks of owning the 16 Pro, it's handy, but I've almost forgotten it's there because it's a little bit redundant. There's already so many ways to open the camera on the 16 Pro that I don't really need a camera control button. It does come in handy once in a while to just tap the camera control button and then tap it again to take a picture. But I'm noticing that when I'm taking a picture using the camera control button, like using it as a shutter mechanism, it causes my hand to move a little bit, which makes the camera actually shake. And then the pictures, unless I'm in like really bright settings, will come out a little bit blurry. It's useful for invoking the camera. Like you're in a different screen, you press the camera control button once, it goes into the camera. That's really cool. But actually using it to like zoom in and out, it's a little bit cumbersome, and I find it a lot faster to just go into the screen and do it old school, like just pinch to zoom and that kind of thing. I think it's cool that we have a new button in the 16 Pro, but I don't think it's the most functional thing in the world. What I do like about the camera control button on the 16 Pro though, is now I can use that dedicated button to open the camera, but then I can use the action button to toggle on my flashlight. Where on the 15 Pro Max, because there's no camera control button, there is an action button up here, but you can only assign it to do one thing. So I have it assigned to open the camera. So that works totally fine, but it's nice having the camera control button and the action button on the 16 Pro. And when it comes to the actual cameras on both of these phones, I think they look very, very similar in my test. Video looks almost exactly the same. Photos look almost exactly the same. The only difference I've been noticing in image quality is the 16 Pro has an updated ultra wide angle camera using the full 48 megapixel sensor. So ultra wide photos look definitely better on the 16 Pro versus the 15 Pro Max, but they already looked really good on the 15 Pro Max. And most of the time, honestly, I don't really feel like I need a 48 megapixel sensor. Most people don't, in my opinion, because you're really just posting to like Instagram and stuff. You don't need that big of a sensor unless you're printing photos out. But for the most part, these cameras are both fantastic. They do have a lot of HDR processing though, so they do kind of make people's faces look kind of baby-like, and there's a lot of smoothing, there's a lot of like shadows being completely obliterated, and everything just looks a little too HDR on both of these phones' cameras. But the iPhone 16 Pro does have new tones, ways that you can kind of customize the basic camera app. But in day-to-day use, I don't think you're going to really notice a huge difference between these two cameras. The 16 Pro's camera does have a better slow motion now, where you can get 120 frames per second in 4K. I never shoot slow motion videos like ever on my phone, so it's not really an issue for me. But if you shoot a lot of slow motion and you want it to look nice and crispy, get the 16 Pro. Other than that, the cameras are going to be almost identical. When it comes to performance, the 16 Pro feels a tiny bit faster, but in day-to-day use, I don't think it's that much faster. I wouldn't get the 16 Pro over the 15 Pro Max just for the fastest processor. Yes, it is slightly faster, especially at like processing photos, I've noticed in the camera app, but in day-to-day use, when you're scrolling around using these two phones, they feel basically the same when it comes to speed. If you do a lot of like gaming and stuff, you might see more of a difference in the 16 Pro where it'll be a little bit faster with like graphics performance and CPU. But at the end of the day, I don't think there's a huge difference in speed between these two phones. They're both incredibly fast. So one of the ways I think these phones actually differ a bunch is with battery life. After using the 15 Pro Max for a year, the battery health is at 93. It's still at normal capacity. And seriously, the battery is insane on the 15 Pro Max. Like I felt like with moderate to normal usage, I really only had to charge the 15 Pro Max like once every other day, if that. I'm definitely not like a pro user. I'm not on it all day and that kind of thing, but I do use it for photos and social media. So yeah, battery life on the 15 Pro Max is definitely a huge plus for this because the battery is bigger. It's pretty efficient. The 16 Pro has really good battery life too, but it's noticeably not as good, of course, because it's a smaller battery than the 15 Pro Max. It does have that newer processor to keep it pretty efficient with iOS 18. So I feel like I'm getting like between 5 and 7 hours of screen time on a single charge on the 16 Pro, which is really good. It's definitely more than enough. Like I don't really need more than that. And I'm usually at about 20 to 30% at the end of the day with the iPhone 16 Pro. So that's really good, but I still think the iPhone 15 Pro Max gets way better and noticeably better battery life. So both of these phones are excellent, but which one would I recommend for you? I really feel like it depends on who you are and what you need your phone to do. If you watch a lot of videos on your phone and you love looking at like large images on Instagram and stuff, I would recommend actually getting the 15 Pro Max. The display is slightly bigger and it has enough screen real estate where you do notice a pretty dramatic difference from the 16 Pro in my opinion. The other big area of difference I think is the battery life. Like I said, the 15 Pro Max just gets much better battery life. So if you need like all day battery, or if you don't want to charge it every freaking 5 seconds or whatever, get the 15 Pro Max. Don't even get the 16 Pro because I feel like you will be let down a little bit with the 16 Pro, but the cameras are basically exactly the same. Of course, the 16 Pro has the camera control button, which is cool, but I don't think the camera control button is cool enough to warrant getting the 16 Pro over the 15 Pro or the 15 Pro Max, because the camera quality at the end of the day to me looks almost exactly the same, and I don't think most people will even notice a difference between the two. So I think that covers it all. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. And which phone are you gonna pick? Are you gonna get the 16 Pro or the 15 Pro Max? Or have you even upgraded your phone since like the 13 Pro? Because I don't know if you'll notice a huge difference unless you have like an 11 Pro or something before that. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, leave a bear emoji in the comments down below. Smash all the buttons. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.